Call the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a most important national debate. And for all those Australians who are listening, thinking at last this parliament is having an argument about the future of Qantas and the future of aviation jobs, please be advised. The Prime Minister, the Treasurer, the Deputy Prime Minister, the people who are advocating the sale of Qantas to foreign interests, they have walked out of the chamber. So this is the quality of government we have in Australia. They won't be accountable in the Parliament of Australia to debate the jobs. And the real shame of this debate about aviation jobs is that the Prime Minister and his team have only created one export industry in Australia since getting elected, and that is the export of Australian jobs overseas. It is not good enough for a government of Australia of whatsoever politics to advocate the dismantling of Australia's national carrier. It is not good enough to tell thousands of Qantas employees that the only plan the government has is you're out of work. It is not good enough to tell our flight attendants, to tell our pilots, to tell our flight engineers, to tell the maintenance workers, the licensed maintenance engineers, the aviation maintenance engineers, to tell the cleaners. It is not good enough for the government to say that the only plan we have for you is that your job will go overseas. I hope the government, next time it's flying in a very safe Qantas plane, served by very professional staff, when they see the cleaners, the not very well-paid cleaners, queuing up on the aero bridge to clean up after their mess on the plane, I hope they have at least the courage, because they're not here in the parliament to have the courage. I hope they have the courage there to say, actually, we don't care about you, we don't care about your jobs, we've run out of ideas except ship them overseas, ship them overseas. This is a government who is in love with Orwellian language. They love that language. They said about the car workers, you've been liberated. That means you're unemployed. They've said about Qantas, we will free you from your shackles. Obviously, the Prime Minister at Mandela's funeral picked up the worst of the word freedom, but he hasn't understood that there is no freedom in unemployment. There is no freedom. There is no freedom in not fighting for Australian jobs. So what we see here is there is no freedom in dismantling the skills of the aviation maintenance industry. There is no freedom in telling flight crews of the international business that you're probably better off getting a job in the Gulf or in Asia because we're not going to fight to keep your job here. I, for one, am grateful. You can have your crack, Sunshine. Your leader isn't here. Why don't you observe the rules? What we say, Sunshine, you will get your go. Why don't we say to every pilot in Australia who you've spent decades training, you've done the courses, your families have done without you, we actually don't want you here. I know what happened after Ansett. Thousands of people had to move overseas. And yes, it is a good thing that Virgin is in Australia, but remember, when we had Ansett and Qantas, we had thousands more jobs than we do now. I know what happens when you start dismantling an airline. You start downgrading the skills and quality of Australian aviation. Australian aviation served us through 2 world wars. Australian aviation has served us to help get Australians out of Beirut and get people out of Bangkok. I loathe the false patriotism of those people opposite who say we're trying to free Qantas. No, you're not. You're trying to kill Qantas. And when we look at the arguments that those opposite are using, they've never seen an argument they can't turn on its head that black is not white and white is not black. They say they're doing Qantas a favour. Well, Qantas doesn't want your favours. They wanted you to do what you said to them 3 months ago, a debt guarantee. Because let's have a look at the cynical, dithering, deceitful conduct we've seen in the last 3 years from this government. First of all, they've tried to blame carbon. They said carbon's to blame. Then, somewhat annoyingly last night, Qantas said carbon is not the issue. Is there no shame in those opposite? They have been trumpeting. Even after Qantas said carbon's not the issue, these people still believe that if they stick with a big lie long enough, people will swallow it. Well, no, they won't. Not this time they won't. They've also tried to say that they're not into chequebook support. Well, tell that to Cadbury. Why is it that chocolate is a preferred Liberal industry but airlines aren't? What is it that chocolate has that aviation doesn't? What an inconsistent bunch of roosters you are. Inconsistency is your watchword. But if we want to talk about the cynicism of those opposite, it's this lie that they say that the Qantas Sale Act, if you get rid of Part 3, it'll all be happy days and blue skies and planes flying. No, it won't. Because to begin with, I've started to wargame through what happens if the coalition get through their job-killing propositions. First of all, Qantas will have to get another air operating certificate. Each business has to have one. They have one now, they have to get a second air operating certificate. That'll take a year. Oh my goodness. We've wasted 3 months, but these brain surgeons opposite are going to take another year. Then, of course, you've got to demerge the business. Didn't think about that, did they? The merger of TAA and Qantas in 1996 took a year. Do they just think that in Abbott Land you can click your fingers and get a pair of scissors and cut the red tape and free Qantas from the shackles, that they will in fact demerge in less than a year? It'll take a year. And in the meantime, Qantas struggles. Then you have a look. Calm down, he says. You're killing the jobs. You should be more excited about it. Now, then we look at what else will take time. The employees. Did I mention that magic word which never passes the lips of the Liberals? What about the employees? There are 25,000 to 30,000 people working at Qantas. When you split the airline in two according to your great plan, you'll have 10,000 plus will have to be transferred to the new business. Have you thought about how you do that? Have you thought about the redundant— Of course you haven't thought about it. What a silly question. Then what we look at is you're going to have to take 10,000 plus employees, re-employ them. You're going to put them on the same terms. You're going to make them redundant. You haven't thought about a thing, member for Deakin, not for some time. Now, furthermore, we then have a look at what else we'll do. Now, let's say that we've spent our year demerging, we've got the air operating certificate, you've worked out who owns the aeroplanes, you've then handled the employees on this great idea to sell the business overseas. Then who's going to buy it? The obvious buyers in the industry are the Middle East or China. They have to go through a Foreign Investment Review Board process. That'll take up to 2 years. Not a conspiracy, it's just a fact, member for Lindsay. Now, what we then do is you're going to take up to 2 years to get someone to put some foreign capital in under this great rush of blood to the head that the Abbott cabinet had last night. And imagine that Foreign Investment Review Board process. You lot don't fill me with a lot of confidence when it comes to Foreign Investment Review Board. If you're panicked on GrainCorp, Qantas is GrainCorp on steroids, and you won't have the ticker to do it. So what we have is you're proposing, as a solution to Qantas, to go down a path which will take up to 2 years to do, and at the end we'll have fewer jobs, and no doubt knowing this government in an election year, you'll panic when you have a look at who's buying it. And indeed, the reason why I'm so confident that you'll panic other than GrainCorp, Warren Truss, well-known luminary intellectual thinker of the coalition, said, if one foreign investor has gotten 49% of the airline, then its strategic policy is likely to change. The attitude of its board would change. We could therefore not be confident anymore that Qantas would put the interests of Australia first. Warren Truss is proof that even a stopped clock is right twice a day. He is correct on that. He could not be confident of putting Australia's interests first. So there you have it, people of Australia, ladies and gentlemen. We have a government who is proposing a plan which will send thousands of jobs offshore, which has been the product of some cynical blame everyone else except buying a mirror and looking at the real problem, and it's been about a plan which has clearly got more holes in it than Swiss cheese. But then we get to what I think the real issue of this issue is. The real issue here is they want to turn the spirit of Australia into the ghost of Australia. They want to say, here's another company where we won't fight for their jobs. Listen to the roll call. Holden, Toyota, Alcoa, Electrolux, Gove, Qantas. How dare they pretend to be interested in Australian jobs? They have not fought for any jobs. When will it end? The problem with the government is that they're zealots. They're extremists. They have never seen an Aussie job they'll fight for. The world is too hard. When they tell us it's about a level playing field, world aviation is not a level playing field. Most aviation businesses in the world have government support, but these single-minded extremists who will never fight for a job in Australia, will the last Abbott government minister on the last job turn the lights out. You won't fight for jobs. You won't stand up for Australian aviation, You know that you've taken too long to get to this point, and you know your solution is about politics. It's not about jobs. Shame. Yeah.